second nature. Christina Henderson, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Aaron. Happy to be here.
You are the director of TRE, the Running Event, and Switchback, which we'll get a chance, I think, today to maybe talk about both. But Switchback is coming up here pretty soon. So I think we can really dig into that as sort of our starting point with the conversation and then really just talk about trade shows in general. You've been doing this thing for a while. And I think there's a lot of really cool sort of inside information that maybe we could learn today on the pod. So this is going to be a fun one. Maybe we should start out with a little bit about Switchback as kind of our starting point. Can you just talk about the event from just a top line? What is Switchback? Where is it going down? When is it happening? Just to fill in the audience.
Absolutely. So, Switchback is a twice yearly national event for the outdoor industry. So, for the past couple of years, we've had Switchback at TRE, which you mentioned, Switchback at the running event. We launched that in 2022 because at the running event, we started seeing this crossover between the outdoor industry and the running industry. We saw more outdoor specialty stores attending TRE. We saw more brands who we historically considered outdoor brands wanting to exhibit at TRE. And so we really wanted to be intentional about their presence at the running event and give them a space to gather there. So we launched Switchback at TRE in 2022, and for the time being, that's how we saw it. And then we started hearing more from the industry that more was needed, and so we hired a consulting agency to help us do a research project around the need for a gathering in the outdoor industry. So we interviewed with retailers and brands and industry professionals around, hey, what does the outdoor industry need right now in terms of a gathering? So through that research, we learned that there was an interest in a dedicated event for the outdoor industry in the spring summer timeframe. So that brings us to now. We launched Switchback Spring. We announced it last June, and we will have our debut Switchback Spring in June 16th through 18th in Nashville, Tennessee. And it is a dedicated event for the outdoor industry for all sectors. So, brands, retailers, media, nonprofit organizations to come together, gather, do business, learn, and celebrate the industry.
Very cool. How did you decide on Nashville, Tennessee? I mean, this has got to be a really interesting, maybe bigger question about trade shows in general. Like, how do you decide that it's in Nashville or San Antonio for that matter? What's the thing that makes it the location?
Many factors go into that. So, and with Nashville in particular, that research study that I mentioned, we received feedback from the industry uh, to look into a more central location and possibly even east. So traditionally, national outdoor events have taken place in the west. And so, this gave us an opportunity to differentiate Switchback. We're really trying to do something different, build the future of the industry. And so bringing it to Nashville kind of set us apart, right? And another piece of that was the Gaylord Opryland, which is where the event is taking place in Nashville. Are you familiar with Gaylords?
No,
Okay.
no.
So at the Gaylord, there's a few Gaylords in the country, and at the Gaylord Opryland, we will have the trade show floor. We will have the education sessions. There are, I believe, 12 restaurants on property. It's also a hotel. So everyone will be eating, sleeping, attending the event in one place, which was very intentional, right? So part of what makes these national gatherings so important is those connections and who you're going to see and who you may run into. And I say this a lot, but it's something I believe in. Uh, you know, Creating these serendipitous moments at these events is very important, right? So you may be trying to reach a certain retailer or a certain brand, and you're not hearing back, in this digital world that we live in. But at Switchback, at a national event, you may be standing behind them in line for a coffee, right? And so we're very intentional about building a space where these connections can happen very organically and naturally.
Very cool. Well, I am for one am relieved that trade shows have migrated away from Las Vegas because I've been to more than a few, and I just can't take it anymore. I'm so glad that yeah, everybody's kind of spreading out from there. I think what you said too about this idea of just being in person with people and being able to put a face to a name, or being able to stand next to them in line for coffee or whatever else makes a such a outsized impact, and I feel like it's an underrated part of what people sort of just call networking in general. But this idea of how you go from a cold email to a warm introduction, this is the stuff right here. This is how you get those warm introductions, and this is how you build relationships outside of email and social media, right? What kind of stuff do you think the retailers and the brands can really expect when it comes to, I mean, obviously you'll make spaces available and stuff, but the education stuff sounds like a really interesting element to the event itself. Obviously, as a total nerd with this stuff, I love all the educational stuff, and that's almost a reason alone. What does the educational component to Switchback look like?
The education portion is very important to the event. It's, I believe the outdoor industry is in need of education and inspiration and um, sharing best practices, like peer learning, right? And so by coming together at an event, uh, we are building a program where that can take place. So the education is centered around retailers, and so that includes best practices for small businesses, right? So at the heart of it, outdoor specialty stores are small businesses. And so we want to provide education to help them run stronger businesses. So this, that goes into buying strategies. It goes into how you merchandise in your store, uh, how to strengthen your marketing, how to reach new consumers. So that's a part of it. We are also working with Outdoor Industry Association, the OIA, around research and providing data to retailers. We're seeing this shift in the industry around a casual and core consumer. Um, we're seeing more casual consumers, or at least that's the story, right? And so we're working with OIA to do research around, who is shopping in outdoor stores. What are they buying? Who are they? What are they using these products for? Where are they? Really trying to get information that is critical for outdoor stores and their businesses so that they understand who is shopping in their stores and how to cater their service and products to that. So that's a big part of it. We're bringing in nonprofit organizations to talk about conservation, sustainability, DE&I in the industry. So you can expect learnings of all kinds. It is such a critical piece of the event. And, you know, retailers will walk away with actionable takeaways, right? Real things that they can take back to their store and implement right away.
I've got to think about the programming of something like this. It must be challenging because there's a lot of overlap between what the brands want to learn or do and what the retailers want to learn and do. But I've also got to wonder if there's brand specific or retail specific stuff. How do you think about sort of as a general question about trade shows in general? How do you think about servicing those two core, I guess, attendees, customers, however you want to frame it, really, there's a lot of overlap, but there are some individual needs for each side. How do you think about that, or do you think about that when you're putting something like this together?
A lot of thought goes into that, right? And so we've talked about it, Switchback at its core is for retail. And so how we have laid out the event is day one of the event, that's Monday the 16th, is education for retailers. So that's where you're going to find those sessions around running a small business and, in addition to other things, but day one is catered to retail. As we go into day two and three, so Tuesday the 17th and Wednesday the 18th, those are trade show days. So the trade show opens on the 17th. And we have a theater on the trade show floor, and we'll have education running in that theater throughout the day. And those sessions are more catered to the entire industry or possibly brand specific because that is on the trade show floor where anyone can access. You'll have brands coming to join sessions from their booths. So in there, you will hear more about, what's happening in the industry as a whole and brand specific, right? Like what, education for various sectors of a brand.
Speaking of brands, and I guess, retail's part of this too, but with TRE, you've got kind of a good running start, pardon the pun, but you've got a good running start on communicating with that industry, and retailers and brands understand why they need to be there and what they can expect. But and you've obviously built up some of the stuff with Switchback already, but now that you're going to have this standalone event, how do you think about the outreach to expand beyond the running industry to bring in brands from, other categories outside of the running space to be a part of this, right? Because there's obviously Sea Otter, like I was prior to the call, we were talking about going to an event like that. There's a lot of brands that are going to that I think would probably make sense to be at something like Switchback. What does that outreach look like where you're trying to kind of lean into other industries that maybe you haven't had FaceTime in before to let them know that this is an option and let them know it means something? Because as a runner, we understand what TRE means, but as someone who's not in the running industry, who is Switchback? What is this? How do you do that outreach?
It's more, hey, what do you need? So, hey, brand, talk to me about your goals for this year and the next few years. Talk to me about what you're trying to accomplish and really understanding how we can support them. And then you go into, well, hey, you're trying to reach outdoor specialty retailers. We are creating a gathering for the industry, right? So it's throughout this process with Switchback, we are listening first. We are saying, okay, we are not going to take the running event and make the running event and clone it and call it Switchback and make it outdoor, right? The outdoor industry has very distinct needs. There are similarities, of course, but we can take a model and learn from the running event, but we need to understand the various challenges and opportunities in the outdoor industry. So first we're listening and we're saying, "Hey, we're here. How can we build an event for you?" So that's really how it began. It started with that. And so we build that relationship, we build that trust, and then we say, "Okay, we heard you. Here's the plan. Come in and join us and be a part of this gathering and building the future of the industry."
Very cool. What were the things that you were kind of listening for and looking for when you started Switchback, even as part of TRE originally? What were those data points or those anecdotes, the feedback that you were getting? I mean, was it, that the traffic through that part of the trade show, was it anecdotal? Was it sort of like a gut feeling of like, this feels underserved and we need to do more? Because I've got to imagine this is a big investment to build this out. So, what was the justification internally of, hey, we need to do this?
So it really was, we hired an outside party to come in and help us, right? So we went to the brands who had been exhibiting. We went to other brands that hadn't exhibited with us at Switchback at TRE and really got the data first, right? And had them tell us what was needed. And what we were hearing over and over is that they were hungry for a gathering and like a coming together and a place to do business and to learn and to connect, right? We can't lose sight of the importance of community. And, you hear it out in the industry that the outdoor industry is splintered or, and we need to come together and unite. And so that was the resounding message is create a space where We can come together. We can unite and move forward stronger together, where business can take place, where mentorship takes place, uh, learning. And, you know, there was just this craving for that.
Well, it's coming, and I think it's going to be really exciting. I'd be curious, as someone who's put on a lot of events in the past, and obviously you've put on a lot of events. There's always like one or two things that kind of stand out of like, ooh, this is going to be like a really special touch that I can't wait for people to see this one. And you don't need to tip your hand if you've got something totally surprised, but is there anything that you're personally just like really looking forward to being able to put this event on this year?
I love this question. I think I'm going to go back to the venue and what we are and us being so intentional about bringing the industry together, right? I've been asked if Switchback Spring is will be like the running event. Will it look like the running event? And no, it is. We are intentionally uh, creating a more intimate event here in year one to really bring the outdoor industry together. And uh, the goal is that, you know, if you've been to the running event, there's this energy to it. There's this energy and inspiration that takes place at the running event that is so, so special. That is what we want to create. That you can expect at Switchback. That energy that you want to bottle up and take home with you. So that is what I'm excited about. I think trade shows, people throw around trade show and it sounds stuffy and it sounds like there's no windows, and you know, Switchback will feel very different. It will be community driven, experiential, uh, space and time for connection and building community. And that's what I'm most excited about. I want people to understand and see the value in that. I believe that these national events drive the culture of an industry. And I think that is what Switchback will do for the outdoor industry.
Yeah. There's such a huge opportunity to do exactly that when you pull everybody together and get everybody in the same room. There's so much that can come out of those moments and those sessions together, and yeah, it's amazing just being able to gather together. I'd be curious to know what kinds of things you're going to be looking for at Switchback, because obviously you've done, it in conjunction with TRA in the past, but the fact that it's going to be the first one and doing it, on its own for the first time it's a big lift to go 0 to 1 on something like this. What are the things that you're going to be looking for at the event? And this is sort of like, this is the behind the scenes stuff, right? What are the things that you're going to be looking for to continue building the event out as you're like, okay, next year we got to do this differently, or I want to see how this goes. Like, what do those things look like at in Nashville this year that maybe you could quickly apply to the San Antonio event, or you would, eventually look for? Are there any, not question marks, but are there any things that you're really paying extra close attention to, or thinking about?
It's kind of everything. And, this is year one, to your point. And so we will be asking all the questions. How can we be better, right? How did this go? How was the experience for a brand? How was the experience for a retailer? How was the media experience on site? So we are here to listen and continue to evolve. We're not going to get everything right, most likely, but we are committed to the industry. We went into this being very intentional and dedicated and committed to continuing to learn. And the industry is changing rapidly. And what year one looks like will be very different from year three. And that's a good thing, right? Because we are learning and we are growing with the industry. So I'm not sure there are specific things. I will be looking for that energy, right? That like it, someone asked me, how will you know if it was successful? And it's that, it's not
Mhm.
the number of this or the what, it's that energy. Did we create that community feel? Did we create something that people want to come back to, and they left feeling inspired and a part of something bigger than themselves?
I think one of the key things that I've learned about, I worked at Red Bull for a long time and put on literally hundreds of events for them, some internal and plenty of external. But I feel like the one thing is that if an event goes well, nobody has feedback. But, you know,
Well, I
but
always say, if the biggest complaint is the food, then
mm,
then we're pretty good.
yeah,
You can only do so much with convention center food.
yeah. That's got to be a challenging thing. I remember, yeah, I've been in plenty of those situations where you can have the best location, but you can't really impact some of the stuff that's sort of built into it. And yeah, some of those places are just straight up volume locations. I've got to imagine though, in Nashville, Tennessee, you said there's like 12 restaurants
Oh
on
yeah, I
site.
don't think it's going to be an issue at Switchback, which I'm excited about.
That's important. It is funny though, like that can make all the difference in the world. And I've actually doubled down on food at events, just especially for like internal events and stuff that we put on at Red Bull. You'd like bring in like the best caterer just because you're like, if I can actually just get the food right, I can actually, not that the programming is going to be bad, but if I get the food right, they'll take it a little bit easier on me with all the other details of the event.
It's important. I get it. Yeah.
It's so funny. This is it though. Like, what are the things that actually make an event successful in an attendee's eyes? And there are some things that can be out of your control that make a big difference. I mean, if it's blisteringly hot in Nashville and people feel like they've been stuck inside for 3 days, I feel like the outdoor industry pushes on that one a little bit harder than, another industry might, right?
No question. And it's I feel cliche even saying this, but it is true for events is, people are going to remember how you made them feel, right? And so that is important. Like, what food are you providing? Are you going outside? How was their experience picking up their badge? These details matter and we take that very seriously, because the attendee experience is everything. It's how you made them feel and how that's what they'll remember.
I kind of want to go back to this idea of being together in person and how we make connections and build relationships and stuff. And maybe this is just more of a general question, but do you have any tips for networking at I hate the word networking, but do you have any tips for building relationships at trade shows, at events like this, at you know running a booth as a brand? You're getting bombarded left, right, and center. And these retailers, this might be their only chance to talk to a brand or build a relationship with somebody. Um, have you ever seen any like best practices or anything that people have done really, really well that you'd pass on?
I love this question. So I don't know that my answer will be groundbreaking, but I believe that you need to be available and you need to go to the things, right? So, you'll see in some booths if people are on their phones or they're behind a desk, right? They're much less approachable. Stand up, right? Like be available, be open. Go to the welcome reception. Go, introduce yourself. Uh, it's not groundbreaking, but you'd be surprised. It's so easy to just say, well, no one came and talked to me. And it's like, well, how are you making yourself available? How are you presenting? Did you go to the morning hike? Did you go to the coffee break? So it's being available, it's going to the events. And I always try to flip it as well. People will ask about the running event, and it's the 19th year, and so many people have friends or they have groups, and so I always try to say as well is, if you're with a group, to make yourself open and available to new people, or ask someone to come sit with you who may not have someone there. So it's really it's on all sides to just, we're one industry. Let's be open and come together. So I hope that answers. I know it's not like, uh,
Yeah.
but I think that's all it takes.
It's such an interesting approach to, yeah, how do you quickly, it's like speed dating, right? Like you're running around all these booths trying to make connections, trying to whatever. It's how can you make this meaningful? And I actually had a really interesting experience with my oldest son who is graduating from college in about a month. And he went to his career fair to, try to get a job. And we were talking about how there are set rules of like, oh, here's your resume, right? And just go with me on this one a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like understanding how to like build something more out of the interaction. Because if you understand the rules that are set in place, then you can work with those rules and kind of adapt and stand out from them. And so, okay, well, the resume cover letter is sort of the standard, like you show up and you got your thing. And actually, I did this way back in the day at Interbike as well, where a lot of athletes would show up with like their resume of like their results from the previous year. And when you understand like what everyone else is doing to try to create that moment, you can give it a little bit more thought of how you might do it better, how you might kind of move around that. And so in my son's case, looking for a job, hey, this really matters. How could you stand out from every other kid that's going to have a resume with the same exact degree that you have? I had him go back to his professors, the senior level professors, and ask each one of them for a sentence kind of like about him. And I was like, this is called social proof. And have each person give you every professor that these people in the career fair are probably going to understand who that person is. Have them give a little thing and then print that on the back of your resume so that when you hand it in, you've got the social proof built in. And all of a sudden, this one little element is going to help you stand out. And voila, the
Yeah,
kid
so smart. I don't
got
even
a
need, I
job.
didn't even need to ask if it worked. I'm certain that it did.
Yep, he's got a job, which is a huge relief on my shoulders. But we did the same thing way back in the day at Interbike. We would be essentially competing against other athletes that had the same exact level of skill who would be walking into the booth with their resume. We made a proposal that said, whatever we did last year is great, but you weren't sponsoring us, so you don't get anything out of that. Here's what we're gonna do. Yes, our results probably give us direction of where we're headed, but this is what it's going to look like to work together. Can you see yourself as part of this future? And guess what? It worked way better than showing up with a resume. I guess the point I'm trying to make and hopefully impart to the listeners is that at events like this where you get this opportunity to meet people from brands or you get this opportunity to meet retailers that you would like to work with, there is a really big opportunity to identify the opportunity in front of you, identify the expected interaction, and then add one thing to it, which will help you stand out, which will get you to a point of success, which will sort of hack the process, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it's so simple, but it totally works.
I love it. It's so smart. And be curious also, right? Like ask, it's not like ask about them. Like what are you looking for? We use the same approach. It's not about us and like it's about, okay, I want to work with you. Tell me about what you're looking for, and then you know how to respond to that.
I almost wonder if a clever way to approach it would be almost to create like I don't think scavenger hunt's the right word, but like almost like a set of prompts of because I feel like the biggest difficulty that a lot of people have is not everybody in the outdoor industry on brand, retail, or any other side of it is necessarily a podcast host that asks questions for a living. And so it can be really hard to initiate a conversation with the brand that you really respect. Wouldn't it be interesting to have 10 prompts of how to get the conversation going in a really meaningful way as part of sort of how do we make it easier for us to connect with each other? Because that's really what it boils down to. How do we make that connection easier to start off with and also how to have these meaningful interactions with people on a higher level? I don't know. Maybe someone in our second nature Slack can put that
No, I
together.
think that's great. I'm taking notes over here. Like,
Well, I think that, it really kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Like, how do we make it so these brands and retailers can connect in a really meaningful way that they're going to take away? And like you said, what's going to impact the energy? What's going to make this event a huge success? That connection between the retailers and the brands can be so vital. I mean, there are multiple examples now where brands have maybe avoided specialty retail at their own peril. And we've seen one very prominent footwear company take a huge hit for doing that. And so I think, hey, this is a huge opportunity. And this is how it plays out on a really big scale, but everybody needs to be really making the most of opportunities like this. And so how might we make the most of it? Uh, My 2 cents.
Yeah, no question.
I would love to hear a little bit more about TRE because I mean, TRE is a massive event, and Switchback will likely also be a massive event, but it is year one. Can we talk a little bit about TRE? I know we've done podcasts about TRE. We did an emergency pod with Steve Holmberg when he came back from the event. Emergency is maybe not the right word,
I
but it
know what
worked
was
great.
emergency.
No, it was just like the immediate download because Dylan and I didn't make it this year, and so we were like, we want to know everything. Tell us everything about the event. But I mean that event specifically is a massive, massive industry event where brands are holding product until the event to show it off, and that's a key inflection point. I'd love to hear a little bit of your experience as the director of the event. What is it? I mean, do you feel pressure that like these multi-billion dollar brands are waiting until your event to release stuff?
Yes, simply. Well, Aaron, have you ever been?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll change that this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. So, yes, how I always think about it is we have tremendous opportunity with the running event, and also a responsibility. It is a very important space for brands, retailers, media, for anyone in the running industry. So we take that very seriously. It's an opportunity to grow the sport of running. It's an opportunity to support emerging brands, an opportunity to support run specialty retailers who are the heart of their communities. It's 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 an incredible opportunity and responsibility, and I feel very lucky to be in this position. I just celebrated my 10th year with the running event this past year, my fifth as the director, and I'll tell you, I mean, it has shaped the running industry, and the run specialty industry has shaped how I think about everything. These specialty stores, like I said, they are the heart of their communities. They have made it through recessions and a pandemic, and they are thriving. It's incredible. And now you're seeing running kind of seep into culture, and it's such an exciting time to be a part of it.
Have you seen sort of a different? I guess I'd love to know, like over the 10 years that you've been doing it, what are the trends that you've seen, or more recently, what are you seeing in terms of like the evolution of either brands showing up to the event or just kind of bulk trends that are coming across the industry?
It might go without saying, it's seen tremendous growth, first of all, right? So we had our largest exhibit floor ever this past year by a significant margin. And it was the largest ever in 2023 and the largest ever in 2022. And it's just continued to grow. And, I really think that speaks to the health of the running industry. And we have brands coming in that never considered it before. They want to be a part of the running industry. They want to be a part of run specialty, which is very exciting. So you've seen more lifestyle brands look at running. So that's something we're really seeing. Uh, and we've really expanded how we think about the running event. At its core, it is for business to take place. It is to connect the run specialty retailers with the brands, and so that business can be done. But we also understand that the running event it can be more than that. And we have, again, a responsibility to do so. So, we partner with many mission-based organizations, and we give platforms to them at the running event and, with that, they make significant progress in the running industry. And uh, we, yeah, I feel like I'm talking so fast, but this is something that there are many things that are happening and changing in the running industry, uh, but it's just a very exciting time.
Yeah. So crazy that it's just growing and growing and growing. And you're right, the lifestyle element is kind of coming in a pretty major way, and these other brands are starting to kind of finally take notice of the opportunity.
And I will say, growth is good, but it's something that we can't lose this community feel of the running event, right? And so that is our biggest focus as we head into 2025 is okay, we're seeing growth. I think we'll have our largest event that we've had, but keeping that community feel and making sure that run specialty retailers are connecting with each other and they're connecting with brands while also providing space for media and content creators and the people that are growing the industry and the sport in various ways. So there are challenges that take place with growth, and so that it's like, yes, growth is good, but how do we keep that the heart of the running industry and what makes it so important, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I want to go in a little bit deeper on this idea of the media and the content creator, because I think of the pillars of people that are attending, media content creators are probably the third largest one, and they play, I think, an outsized role in not only, spreading the word about the event, but really, again, going back to this idea of like brands waited until TRE to launch stuff, and then those media entities, those creators are there to kind of share that out with the wider community and really amplify the messages that are coming out of TRE. How do you think about sort of hosting media or their role in your event? Because you you don't necessarily have control over their platforms or their voice or what they're doing or saying, but obviously they play a outsized role in how the event is seen on a global scale.
Right. And so this is another trend that we've seen. So when 10 years ago, we didn't think a lot about like the media like we do now. Yes, there was media, but it's changed so significantly. It kind of goes without saying. But this past year, we had our largest media attendance. And so we are being very intentional about their experience at the event, right? And how we view them, and yes, we don't have control, but we do have control of the experience that they are having, right? And making sure that they are connected with brands and brands are connected with them. And so again, we're very intentional and strategic about that. And I was having a conversation with someone at a brand recently, and the running event is kind of becoming this place where if you are in the running industry, like if you are a runner or you are someone who moves and you're interested in this, the running of it is now something that you take notice of, whereas 10 years ago it was just an industry event, and now TRE is kind of a showcase place of what runners can expect to see in the coming year. And so content creators and media are very important to that. So again, we just try, their experience is different from a retailer, but we do try to provide a little bit of education for them on the trade show floor and make it as easy for them to be successful in talking with who they want to talk with and create the stories that they want to at the event.
That's really cool. I think that's something that we'll only likely see even more of, and giving them the opportunities for education or even space to create the content itself. Maybe an early plug for a Second Nature recording area. Who knows?
Well, and
But
community, Aaron, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
because it's important that the media and content creator community comes together and we give them the space to do that. So, that's something we think about as well.
absolutely. When you talk about growth of the event and kind of trying to track in one direction, are you doing things with TRE? And I think maybe this will even come up for Switchback, but are you thinking about programming to sort of gently put your thumb on the scale for the direction that the trade show grows? Or is it a little hands off and like, let's see what the industry wants to do?
Always asking the questions. And I talked about it with how we approached Switchback. It's how we approach every TRE. So the event ends and we immediately send a survey that's followed up with phone calls of, okay, what went well for you? And, how are you thinking about next year? And so through that, we learn, how brands are thinking about it, what retailers found valuable or maybe what they didn't to help inform how we think about the following year.
Very cool. Has there been a year that you can kind of pick out from TRE so far that sort of been transcendent for you, kind of changed the way that you thought about either TRE specifically or how you approach events like this? Has there been like a moment of inflection where you've learned something that just adapted the way that you approached it in the future?
I love this question, and I'm like, I feel like I could get emotional about it, but no question, it was the running event 2021. So, what happened the year prior. We had to cancel the running event 2020, of course. And there was a lot of fear during that time across the board, of course. But, what did this mean for events? What if everything just went digital? What does this mean for us? And what does this mean for gathering? And it was a long 2 years between TRE 2019 and TRE 2021. And the emotion and the energy that was felt at the running event 2021 when people came back together in that time was unlike anything I had ever felt. And I still carry that energy and inspiration. There is a need to gather. Like it's something I believe in probably more than anything. That we are meant to learn from each other and talk with each other and just be with each other and be in community. And so to see the industry go through those very difficult years and then come together and really unite and move forward, that will always stick out to me. I can just remember how I felt like standing there when the trade show doors opened.
Mm.
It will always stay with me.
That's such a important moment. I remember some of like my first hugs with people that I hadn't seen in ages, and that first reconnection with people in real life. That's such a palpable feeling. But it was sort of like this global gap year or years for many people. Do you think that trade shows, do you think events, do you think in person things, you know, have things changed in certain ways because of, you also did get a year to essentially reset and rethink your approach, and also over time more technology became available or more opportunities became available. Are there things aside from just like the importance of the gathering that have fundamentally changed since our global gap year?
Definitely. And so I'll share a story, and I've shared this before, but again, it has it. I think about it often. So someone once told me that as a trade show director, I was in the real estate business essentially. So I sold space, right? We sell space to a brand, and so we're in the real estate business. And maybe, 8, 10 years ago, that was true. Trade shows, you just bought a space and people came and they bought things. I don't know, I think it was evolving, and I think the pandemic then accelerated it. But now events, national industry events, more is required, more is needed. There is more that we need to provide to an industry than simply space, right? It's so much more than that. It's being intentional with how we are connecting each other, how we're thinking about education, what the events are, what the attendee experience is. There's just more expectation and need from an industry, and we're seeing that across the board in the events that we do. So that yeah, that I think that's what I would say.
Are there other shows that you maybe attend or that you take inspiration from, or is there a totally different space that you think is interesting that the industry could learn from? I'm just kind of curious to see, like, I love this idea of cross pollination. Like, what other industries could I learn from that are maybe a step ahead, that are pulling things off that I haven't even thought about yet? And it could be people, doing different booths. It could be, the way that people interact, the way that shows are set up. Is there anything out there, sort of outside the outdoor and running industry that you look at as kind of like, oh, it'd be sweet if we could do that?
Many things, and so I work for Diversified, which is a company that owns events in many different industries. So, I direct the running event and switchback, but we have events in our largest is in the seafood industry. We do events in drones. We do events for administrative professionals. I mean, it's just so varied. And so each of these events are very specific and they're very different. But we have the opportunity to learn from each other within our company of, hey, I'm facing a similar challenge, right? Like, how did you overcome it? Or what was what's your biggest success that you had in this seafood event? And of course, it's not uh, we don't like copy and paste it, but it's like, oh, I see what you did there. What if we took that and made it for the outdoor industry? And so we are constantly talking about that and learning from, the events within Diversified, as well as others. I last week I was at an event. It's funny. There are events for people who put on events. And so
That's amazing.
I was at one last week, and again, it's talking about attendee experience and marketing tools and communication and so we're always learning and applying new things for our events.
It's the most important question. What was the attendee experience like at the event for attendee experience?
It's like of highest quality, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
putting on an event for people who put on events, yes.
I mean, that is a difficulty level that is just like elite. If you mess up, everyone's gonna know it. I was talking to Dylan about this. I always say, like, when you go to like a wedding and you're judging every single touch point at the event, you're like, oh, ours is better. Oh, I like the way
Uh-huh.
they did theirs
Uh-huh.
better than the way ours. Like, you've got to have that every single time you go to an event, but it also must make it really challenging to just go and appreciate an event like that, because you are looking for, the different touch points that most people don't even think about. And that, going back to the point I made, like, if everything goes right, no one has feedback.
No, I mean, you nailed it. Any event that I go to, I just notice things like there's a sign. I'm like, there was a meeting about the placement of this sign and what
Yeah.
was written on it. Like there are so many details to an event that if you're just going and experiencing, you may not notice unless it's wrong, unless it inconvenienced you in some way. But if it's incredible.
One of our things at Red Bull was this concept of surprise and delight, where you're going to the event, but then there's just this extra thing. Like, maybe you got invited to compete in this event, but when you get to your hotel room, someone has gone into the hotel room before you got there and left you a package that had a cold Red Bull that had already been like chilled, and it had maybe a backpack with the event logo on it, and inside that backpack was some gear and some stuff to make it through the weekend or whatever else, and it just, you weren't expecting that when you got there, but then all of a sudden there was this extra little element. And again, it's one of those things that event producers would be like, yeah, of course, but most people wouldn't even think twice.
Those types of things matter. We use a similar surprise and delight. How can we take this one step further? This is what they'd expect. How can we make it just a little bit better? And how do we make it just a little bit easier for them?
In all of your experience with all of these different shows, I've got to ask, what's the craziest thing you've seen at a show?
Oh my goodness. It's endless. I had a feeling you might ask me something like this. I was just reflecting on my 10 years and I'm like,
You've seen some wild stuff, I'm
Yeah, and
sure.
just funny things, right? Like you just now you look back and you're like, okay, that's funny. At the time it was like the world's on fire. Like, but now it's like everything just seems kind of small. I guess I'll share this story. Uh, it's just kind of, it's not crazy, crazy, but it's just funny to think about, right? And to think about the evolution of this brand and their initial presence at the running event. So, On first came to the running event, I believe it was 2011. It was before I was there, but we're familiar with On, right? A global company. They came to the running event their first year. They had the smallest booth that was available, and their budget was very small. And so they didn't do anything beyond any sponsorship or anything like that. So the founders of On took it upon themselves, and they created door door hangers like with On, and they went to the host hotel and they hung them on all the doors, which you can't do if you didn't know. Like you cannot just go and hang things in a hotel like that. So the hotel was not happy. They got in trouble with the hotel. We got them out of it. I respect the effort, right? And
Yeah.
again, those types of things matter. So that was On's first year, and now if you've anyone who's been to the running event knows how On shows up at the running event now. So it again, I think it's just that's not crazy, but it's kind of a funny thing to look back on. And, that was
Mhm.
an emerging brand at the time, and they were doing whatever they could to be seen.
I bet if you've got one of those door hangers, I mean, what an iconic move, Like it's probably, yeah, maybe it's worth something now. I think my favorite trade show story, hmm, I think it was Vans or some skate related brand that did this at a trade show where they went in and they had custom printed toilet paper with their logo printed on the toilet paper, and they went into the trade show bathrooms and they swapped out all of the toilet paper with their branded toilet paper with their thing on it. I don't know exactly what it looked like, but it had some logo on it. And people were psyched on it, but they were so psyched that they stole the toilet paper for themselves. So all of a sudden the trade show bathrooms didn't have toilet paper anymore, and that caused a whole different problem.
Incredible. That's the type of thing where sometimes my friends will be like, what happened at work today, or and like that, like when you're a trade show organizer, it's like all the toilet paper was stolen. I had to like figure that out. There's like these things that you don't plan for, and just it's amazing.
The guerrilla marketing is like cool from the outside, but when you're the one who's organizing the event, it's just like, oh my gosh, she just created, yeah, what problem is gonna happen? Like you have no idea. It just could go so many different directions.
And that's it, right? I always say we plan, and I'm like we plan to the finest detail, and then you get there, and everything will go differently than what you planned. And I never say that things went wrong, because they just went differently than we thought they would, right? And but we're so prepared that we could handle it. So, but that's it, right? You just never know what's going to happen today.
That's what makes this whole thing fun. Well, before we get over to BPC, I kind of want to end and sort of give you the opportunity, because the bulk of our audience is brand and retail, and I'd love to just kind of give you the floor to what would be the message that you want to leave them. We've talked so much about TRE and Switchback, but with the event coming up and with the future of both events, is there any message that you kind of want to share with everyone?
Yeah, thank you, Erin. This has been an amazing conversation. And I would just encourage listeners, whether you're a brand, a retailer, media, coming together as an industry is crucial for the future of the industry. We are trying to bring everyone together at Switchback and build the future. So please reach out to us if you would like to attend, if you have questions, if you have feedback. Again, we talked a lot about our approach, and we're here to listen. we are building this event for you. We need to know what you need. So we are always open to feedback, but we would love to see you in Nashville. I believe it is going to be a very special few days that we will then continue to build on. So June 16th through 18th, Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee. Switchback at the running event will be in San Antonio, December 2nd through 4th. If you have questions, please let me know, but we'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Awesome. I love to say feedback is a gift.
It
And
totally.
yeah, that's what makes all this stuff better. We're always iterating everything that we're doing, right? And I think Switchback's going to start at a really high level because you have so much of this momentum already. But yeah, it'll only get better, bigger, better, more awesome, all the good things. Well, let's switch over to BPC. This is our closing segment, brand product content. Since you're the guest, Christina, what's your entry for today's episode?
Okay, so I have two. I did think about this, Aaron, and my first one, I know that you have a book list, I believe,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Yes. So I want to add one to that, and it may already be on there. I might be surprised if it isn't, but a book that has really stuck with me over the years that I go back to for inspiration is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. The way that she thinks about things and approaches life, I find inspiring and beautiful. So if you haven't read it, would recommend Untamed. And a piece of content that I've just been uh, tuning into endlessly is content coming out of the Speed Project.
Oh yeah.
So the Speed Project just happened. If you're unfamiliar with it, people go from LA to Las Vegas. It's kind of an unsanctioned race, and there are teams who do it, like a relay. There's no course. You can go whatever course you want from LA to Vegas. And you also have people who are doing solo from LA to Vegas. And that's about
Nice.
340 miles.
Hard
And
pass.
but if you haven't tuned in to some of the content coming out of it, I would recommend it. It is so inspiring and moving. In particular, we work with Tommy Runs for the running event, and he did a solo effort and he documented it. And I just think that these days there's not much that we just kind of do for fun and just to see if we can, right? Let's see how my mind and body will react to 340 miles. And so you see people very vulnerable and then overcoming it, and I've just found it to be very inspiring. So I would encourage you to tune into to that content.
Very cool. Okay, well now you've inspired me. I've got two actually because I think related to our conversation. I actually have this book on my nightstand right now and have not actually had a chance to open it up, but it was recommended to me by Tim Tollefson, who I trust inherently in every single thing that he shares with me. And maybe you've read this book. It's called The Art of Gathering. It's something that he has been using as sort of inspiration for Mammoth Trail Fest and something that I definitely want to learn a little bit more about. Surely we've both put on plenty of events, but I'm always open to more insight and stuff. So the art of gathering is my
I have
usually I
not read
show
it, and I will be getting that. I love that.
Tim is great for that kind of stuff. Well, for everything, but that was I was like, yep, instant buy.
Yes.
I will have that one. So I got to dig into that. I'm on a little bit of a fiction journey right now, just to kind of disconnect from things. But coming back to that one, my brand actually that I brought today is Inside Tracker. So I actually got a chance to do the Inside Tracker program, and it is fascinating to get that much information about everything that's going on. And not only that, but to just get actionable stuff. I feel like in this world, we get just bombarded with information now. We can, have tracking on our wrists or our fingers, or we can do a Pernua scan or whatever else. But it's what do you do with that information? And I feel like Inside Tracker did a pretty elegant solve for like, okay, you're gonna get your blood drawn, but then here's what you're gonna do about it. And here are the things that you can take, here are the things that you can do, here are the things, that you can change in your day-to-day life. And I feel like we have all these things at our disposal to be able to, you know, make things better. And what a gift to be able to actually be able to look at the data but know what to do with the data. I'm pretty blessed that I've got, my wife is a doctor, so she can actually like look at these tests and be like, well, this is what this is saying. But I just loved the insight that I got from that inside tracker test. And yeah, big shout out to Jonathan Levitt for uh, helped me out with it. But it's been really, really helpful just to get a better grasp on how it's all going and what I need to do. And yeah, also gave me a little bit of confidence that I am doing some stuff okay.
There you
So
go.
yeah, it's working out. Amazing. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining the podcast. This has been a really fun conversation, and yeah, we're looking forward to Switchback and TRE.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.